Hey everybody, it's Dr. Mark. How you doing? I'm really excited today to talk to you about eggs. They've gotten such a bad rap, and we're so confused. Eggs are bad, eggs are good, cholesterol's bad, it's not so bad. What's the story? What eggs should we pick? It's so confusing out there. And so I'm excited to talk to you about eggs because they're one of my favorite foods. They're actually the source of one of the most important things that happens in the world is creating a new life. So they've got all the nutrients for creating life for a little chicken, actually. And we're going to talk today with somebody who really knows a lot about eggs from Happy Egg. It's Whitney Fortin. She's part of the team at Happy Egg, which is a great company that makes you eggs that are good for you and good for the planet and good for the chickens. Well, sort of, I guess, but they are. And they really are important as a key factor in helping not only provide health and nutrition for us and good quality protein, but also help be a source of regeneration for our food system and agriculture and so forth. So I want to invite her in, and we're going to get talking about eggs with Whitney. So let me get her in. Let's see, view request. Here we go. Happy Egg Company USA. Here it goes. Let's see. Always the dicey part. Let's see how it goes. But I invited you. Hopefully, you're going to be there and you can get on. And try again, a different method. Oh, there you are. Okay, are you there? Yay! Hi, Whitney. How's it going? Good to see
Hi,
you.
Mark. It's good to
Great to
see
see
you.
you. All right, fantastic. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. So, I want to jump right into it with you. We did a little intro, and I think that, people are so confused about eggs because they get such a bad rap and they're, cholesterol and blah, blah, blah. And, just to kind of give you a background, the cholesterol story is just such a piece of nonsense. Even the dietary guidelines for America in 2015 said that cholesterol is no longer a nutrient of concern. And you've got about 20,000 milligrams of cholesterol floating around in your blood, and a couple hundred from eggs, and not going to make a big difference. And actually, cholesterol is the building block of all the important things in your body, like your brain and uh, your cell membranes, sex hormones, all steroid hormones. So it's really an integral part of your biology. All right, so let's talk about why eggs are such an important breakfast food. Because in America, we've been so convinced that we should be having sugar for breakfast, cereal,
Yeah.
right? Pancakes, French toast, muffins, bagels. Now we have all these sugar sweetened coffees and sugar sweetened teas. And this is really killing us. It's literally killing us. And I always say we need protein and fat for breakfast. And guess what? Eggs are a great source of both. So tell us about why eggs are such an ideal breakfast food and why what are people sacrificing when they don't eat a source of protein for breakfast?
All right, Mark, you nailed it on the head. It's eggs are full of protein and fat. So eggs offer all of the nine essential amino acids that our bodies don't naturally produce. And so it's not just a partial protein powder that people like to put in things.
Yeah,
It's a full one ingredient nutrient that gives you that complete essential amino acids that we need. And the other part of that is the satiating fats throughout the day. So if I eat two eggs in the morning, I actually get 20 to 30% of my vitamin and mineral allotment just in those two eggs in the morning.
yeah,
Compared to if I decide, so I'm a mom, so I'm constantly trying to rush out the door in the mornings to get,
yeah,
my daughter off to school. There's times where I feel like I'm choosing maybe a healthier protein oatmeal, but it's got 15 ingredients listed. The
yeah.
second one is sugar, and then the last three are ones that, frankly, I couldn't even pronounce to you, to be completely honest. And so
Yeah.
it's the dynamic of if I'm going to heat that up, that maybe takes 2 minutes.
Yeah,
But then I could take another minute and just scramble up two eggs
yeah,
and give myself and my daughter 20 to 30% of our needs from a daily vitamin and mineral allotment, as well as staying satiated throughout the
yeah,
morning. I'm not getting that morning
yeah,
drag because I have a
yeah,
sugar spike. I'm
yeah.
getting those healthy fats to kind of keep me through the day.
Yeah, so important what you're saying. And think about what eggs are, right? As I mentioned, they're the source of all the nutrients needed for the creation of a new life. So they're extremely nutrient dense. They have choline, they have B12, they have folate, they have tons of carotenoids. I mean, if the chickens are eating the right stuff, I mean, not if they're factory farm chickens. Okay, we're getting into why that's bad, but factory farm chickens are, I don't know, just the worst thing on the planet. They're bad for the environment, bad for you. the eggs are really not really that healthy. So I think it's important to talk about what quality eggs you want. And I think, Rocky obviously knew this because he would he would crack what, a dozen eggs, and he'd throw in his blender, and he like, or his
Yes.
glass, he'd just suck them down before he
Yep.
did his Rocky run in the morning.
Yep.
So I remember that scene for Rocky, but he wasn't having a bagel before his workout, right? So
No.
now one of the problems is when people go to the grocery store, there's a million different egg cartons out there. They're so confusing. You see pasture raised, you see organic, you see omega-3 eggs, you see just regular eggs. What should people be paying attention to? What's important when you're looking at the grocery store for what to eat? And I always say, you want to eat stuff without a label, right? Or without an ingredient list. If you take an egg, it has no real label, right? It has no ingredient list, right?
Yes.
But
It
the
is the
carton
ingredient.
the carton does. So it's a little confusing for people knowing what to pick. So help us sort of navigate how to get through the egg section at a grocery store to find the right eggs.
The egg aisle is confusing. It is confusing. And still to this day, even yesterday, I was in the store and I saw a carton actually that said barn raised. And I'm like, what does that mean? And I'm in this industry, right?
Could be
And
like a
so
it could be like a 50,000 square foot factory farm barn, right?
yes, yeah. It's like, what does that mean? And so, even though we've been in this industry for a while, there's a lot of different things and labels that get thrown at people when they walk up to the egg shelf. And it's no surprise that people aren't really sure where their food comes from in terms of eggs.
Hmm.
So, there are three things that I would say people need to be asking themselves or evaluating when they're at the shelf. The first one really comes down to who is producing the eggs, because when it comes down to it, most of the category, so in fact, 82% of the egg category today in the US is actually produced from hens that never see the light of day. They don't go outside. They are cramped and they're not necessarily able to exhibit natural behaviors. And so it
Hmm.
is kind of this concept of mass production, like you mentioned. And so who's producing those
Yeah,
eggs? You should
yeah,
know where your food is coming from
yeah,
and
yeah,
who is actually doing that versus there are a lot of options out there that say small family farms. Those are real people caring
yeah,
for those hens and being able to make sure that the hens are actually healthy and that they're happy and they're exhibiting natural behaviors. The second thing really comes down to personal preference, but there's a lot of confusion on this in the category too, which is organic versus non organic. A lot of people see organic and they don't know what that actually means
yeah,
in eggs. And
yeah,
what it comes down to in eggs is what is the feed that the hen is
yeah,
fed
yeah,
and the land or the area in which the hen is raised. So, is
yeah,
there different pesticides or things that are in their environment? And so, it does come down to personal preference, but it's really looking at, do you want organic or do you want non organic? And what is the hen actually consuming? Because what you
yeah,
put in is what you get out. And that's the same
yeah,
with our bodies, right?
yeah,
You talk about this pretty consistently on
yeah,
what we need to be putting into our bodies. And then the third thing I would say people need to be asking or really looking for when they come to the shelf is, do the hens get outdoor access? Do they actually get to move around? It's the health and longevity of us, where I think you even mentioned the other day around how we need to make sure we're exercising. And it's the same with the hens, that if they are getting outside, they're able to go and dust bathe, which is the way that they actually clean their feathers. They're able to peck at bugs and grass, and they're actually really naturally curious animals. I've been out there multiple times and they've pecked just at my pants because I have a hole in it, right? And then so it's like they see that they're just curious what's going on there. And so getting outdoor access is really
yeah.
important just for the health and longevity of the hen who is making those eggs and making the quality difference in our eggs.
Yeah. So it's really important because there's so many confusing ways. Like organic could be in there eating a lot of grain. It could be organic grain, but it may not. It may be like corn and maybe organic, but it's still not their natural feed.
Sure.
And they do eat some seeds, they do pick and stuff, but this is important people understand. The quality of the food you eat is related to the quality of the food that whatever you're eating ate. Right? So if your chickens are out there eating all this wild stuff and grubs and bugs, that's where they get their nutrients from. And that's where you get the nutrients from when you eat the egg. So it's really, really important, not just whether they were free range or whether they were organic, but it's like what actually are they out there doing and eating? So, there's an easy way to kind of tell sometimes like how an egg is, right? What are the kind of sensory things? I know what I look for. I want to hear what your
Sure.
top tips are for or how when you
Yep.
pick up an egg or you look at it, you crack it open, like what are the things that you're trying to like figure out?
Yes. I've learned over time, not all eggs are the same, and you can experience that firsthand. And it starts with the shell. So the minute you crack it, does it actually just crumble quickly? And is it like the shell actually going into the egg and breaking apart the yolk, breaking apart the white together? It starts with the shell. And the indicator for that is really how healthy and how nutritious of the feed was the hen actually getting as well,
Yeah.
because the shell is the last thing to form within a hen's ovarian tract. So it's the yolk drops, then the white congeals around it, and then the shell forms around it. If it's a really weak shell, that means that that hen's not getting a ton of nutrients and they're just kind of pushing through the process of getting that produced. Next would really be the once you crack it open. And we see people do this all the time at their houses where they're doing crack test at home, is what we
hmm
say. But
hmm
they're looking at the yolk and the white. And the yolk,
Yeah.
is it really yellow and pale? Is the white very runny and cloudy? Because that means that it's an older
Yeah.
egg. And if it's runny, it's likely been sitting around in a warehouse for a good amount of
Yeah.
time, then been washed, then been packed and actually delivered to your
hmm
store for you to consume.
hmm
And so
Yeah.
look for a deeper color yolk. We say
hmm
our deep orange amber yolks, and look for a white that's congealed and actually together, because that shows you that it's fresh, because the air pocket over time is making that become runny. So we have a lot of chefs that
Yeah.
actually love our eggs for that reason. They constantly write into us on how much they love our yolks and our whites, but also because it's hard to crack the shell. Mark, what do you look
I mean,
for? You said you
it's
have
the
your
same thing.
cues.
It's
What do
the
you
same
look
thing.
for?
Like I actually was in Africa recently. I had an ostrich egg. I mean, the thing you need a freaking hammer to break the
Yeah.
shell, right? And then you're right. You take a really well uh, raised eggs. The shell is like really hard, and that's because there's a lot of nutrients that go into making the shell, and they're getting those nutrients. And when I look at it, yeah, I look at the yolk. I mean, I was in someone posted about New Zealand. Yeah, it's almost like you look at a typical egg yolk from a factory farm egg. It's pale yellow. It breaks so easily. You touch it and just like literally bursts and has no structure to it. But if you get a real healthy egg, you'll see this like dark amber color, almost like a sunset, like a deep orange sunset color. And then you kind of can't like break it easily. You got to like jam it with a fork if you want to break it
Yeah.
open. So it's
Yeah.
like it's really not easy to break. And so that's really the sort of things I look for. And it's pretty easy to tell when you get an egg whether it's
Yeah.
good or not. Now, in terms of the sort of pasture raised farming standards, I'm pretty familiar with that, and I think how does happy eggs farming standards compare with pasture raised? How does it line up with all these different things? Because there's organic, you said there's free range, there's cage free, there's pasture raised, there's what like help us sort of think through that and how happy egg does this and sorts of what matters instead of all the noise. Because I always often say that if you have a health claim on the label, it usually means it's bad for you. That may not be the case with the eggs, but it's like it's still kind of a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. Yeah. What's confusing, we mentioned that the category is confusing when you go up to the egg shelf. The farming standards in eggs are actually not necessarily standardized. They're made by third party certifications. And so that is truly, there's all these different third party certifications, and that's what leads to in eggs all these different labels that your everyday consumer or even people with PhDs can't really even understand what is happening at that shelf. So I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you in a second just to clarify these standards
Yeah,
for you.
yeah,
But I think it will also demonstrate how confusing some of these third party certifications really are as well. So, free range, for certified free range, what that typically means is that the hens get about 2 square feet per bird, and then they get 1 to 2 acres outside. That is one standard certified free range. Then
Mm.
pasture raised typically means for certified pasture raised and humane standard is that you get 108 square feet per bird and 8 to 10 acres of land due to pasture
Yeah,
rotation during that time. So they're
yeah.
rotating pastures of 8 to 10 acres of
Mm,
land.
mm.
What a lot of people don't know is why does some of that even matter? Because it's really one
Yeah, right,
element, which is
right,
space. And
right.
to add further confusion to the category, so if you look at Happy Egg and your question on how does Happy Egg farm, we did not and do not fit into a box. So we don't fit into the traditional standard of free range or the traditional standard of pasture raised for certified humane. We looked at what is best for the birds, and we allow our hens access to 8 to 10 acres of land at a time. And out on those 8 to 10 acres of land, we have things called play kits, which allow them to exhibit natural behaviors. They can
Mm.
go out there, they can dust bathe, they can be protected from predators, and it allows them to truly run. Chickens actually run, they run along. It allows them to run out further on the range because they can exhibit those natural behaviors. And so that's where this category has a lot of confusing points in it
Yeah,
because it is third party certifications. We do have a third party certification. We're American Humane certified, but
yeah,
we don't fit into the traditional boxes or what some people see as different certifications on what is free range, what is pasture raised. We've looked at what do the hens need and what are their actual natural behaviors. So
yeah,
whether it's happy egg free range or pasture raised, the importance is that people are getting educated on this, that consumers are getting educated on where their food's coming from, what are the actual farming practices behind it, because space is only one element of it. Space
yeah.
is 8 to 10 acres. I can throw a lot of numbers at
Well, it
you,
matters what they're
but
eating
it's
too,
one
right?
element.
Because you can have a
Yes.
free range egg that goes out and like has a little area to walk in, but they come back in and they feed it all corn, right? So you don't actually know what they're eating. So what do the happy eggs get to eat?
Right. So we have it's called a proprietary blend. That sounds so fancy, but it's really not. What we do is we look at the age of the hen and we actually monitor based on flocks and edit the feed each week. So each week it's a different feed, if you will, on what they should be eating or the nutrients that they should be eating. They also have ad packs, which we call their vitamin multi-pack, if you will, and it's literally all of those nutrients that they need, like calcium, and it has different carotenoids in it and other antioxidants as well as yeast in it for them that allow them to actually form a strong shell and not necessarily deplete them of the nutrients that they need. So that's where you
Yeah,
really see the difference in our deep orange yolks. Like you can literally see the
yeah,
difference
right.
in our yolk.
Yeah, that's key. That's those are the antioxidants. In fact, those are often phytochemicals, right? We think of phytochemicals being something we find in plant foods. But the truth is, if the animals are eating the right stuff,
Yeah.
you get a lot of phytochemicals in eggs. That's why the orange color there. You also get it in beef or bison or lamb or goats that are actually eating and
Mhm.
foraging a lot of wild plants. So it's really great. So now, Happy Egg is a relatively small company. You've got about 50 employees. Maybe you work with 100 different small family farmers, but you become one of the fastest growing egg brands in the country. So what makes you so successful? Like why you guys hit the number on this?
Thank you for saying that we're successful because every day we feel like we're out here grinding, trying to help people understand their food sources. I'll say it really comes down to our choices. So we stand by our choices. We could choose to do what other people do and do mass farming where the hens are just trapped in a cage and they're stacked on top of one
Hmm.
another. And then we put it in a pretty package and people buy it, right? We could choose to do that, but we don't do that. I'm actually in Arkansas, which a lot of people in the US probably don't even know where that's at, but I'm in Arkansas. And that is where a lot of our farmers are. We chose to actually live and be in the community with where our farmers are raising our hens. So we stand by our choices of doing the small family farmer model, even as we scale and as we continue to grow in the egg category. And then we've also chosen to do what's best for the birds, where we didn't fit in a box. We have our happy egg free range standard, but it's really about that's just one element of it. What are we feeding them? How are we caring for them? And we have a standard that our small family farmers have to meet. We have Nick on our team, who's somebody who goes and audits our farms on a daily or weekly basis. And so
That's
it's
amazing.
really about our choices. And that's where we're just thankful that truly consumers continue to choose us because we're a small fish in a big pond, but we
Yeah.
stand by what we do.
Yeah, that's so great. Well, everybody, this is such a great conversation. I just want to emphasize that eggs are not bad. That they it can be. In fact, one of my favorite breakfasts is a couple of those dark orange yolk eggs, maybe even three, um, or four, because I like a lot of protein in the morning. Avocados, tomatoes, olive oil. It's a delicious breakfast. You're going to start the day better. And I think this, people don't realize what happens when you eat sugar for breakfast. And there aren't that many options for protein breakfast unless you want to have a steak for breakfast. But
Yeah.
eggs are such a great source. And when you have sugar for breakfast, you end up even the same calories of sugar versus like oatmeal,
Mhm.
that's basically sugar, compared to eggs. When they did these studies in kids, they found that the kids who ate the oatmeal
Yeah.
were hungrier. They ate 81% more food. They had higher spikes in adrenaline, cortisol, stress hormones. They had higher levels of blood sugar, higher levels of insulin, eating the same amount of calories, right? Eating the same amount of calories, but if it came from protein and fat versus carbohydrates, sugar and starchy carbohydrates,
Yeah.
then it's going to screw up your biology. So it's not just about taste, it's not just about nutrients, it's about preventing the biggest scourge we have today, which is metabolic syndrome and some resistance that I talk about so
Mhm.
much. And then eggs are so beneficial, not just because they're like have protein, but they're also like a loaded protein, right? They have choline, which is so important for
Yes.
your brain. They have all these carotenoids, lutein, zeaxanthin, which are extremely important for your antioxidant system. They have vitamin D, they have selenium, vitamin A. They're just so full of important things. B12, which is really hard to get. So I think this is a really, really important food that we've kind of badmouthed for many years. But I think eggs are back, and I think even the Dietary Guidelines for America agrees. And I really encourage everybody to check out Happy Eggs. Great company. Go to the grocery store. You know what you're getting. Do your homework. You can read about them. Go online, and I'll post a little bit in the Instagram post here about where to find more about them. But I think they're really something you should pay attention to because it's hard to find your way through the maze of all these different kinds of eggs and egg cartons and egg claims. And it's just, like even me, like I go like, which one should I get and which one's good and what's
Yep.
bullshit here in terms of the recommendations and the labeling. It's very hard. So thanks so much for what you do, Whitney, and so much for Happy Egg being a company. I really always want to help support companies that are making a difference in the food system and providing higher quality food that we all eat. And it's really been great to have you on the Instagram with us. And hopefully everybody checks out Happy Eggs. And thank you so much.
Absolutely. Mark, thank you. And thank you for educating people on where their food's coming from. We appreciate it.
Oh, somebody asked, how many eggs can you eat in a week? Well, that's a good question. We don't know, but I remember just a funny story. I read an article in the New England Journal about this guy who had mental health problem, and he ate 88 eggs a week, and he was
Wow.
fine, like totally fine. So no heart disease, no cholesterol issues. So I think it's just don't worry about it. Eat as many eggs you want.
There you go. That's more than Rocky, right? You referred to Rocky,
Yeah,
so that's probably more than
exactly,
Rocky.
exactly. Definitely, yeah. Although 12 eggs a day, it's probably that's close to maybe.
Yeah. Sounds great. Thanks, Mark.
Bye bye.